movies are not a good, they are a service. And so the traditional idea of, tariffing something at a port of entry just doesn't apply to movies. There's not really a price that is put on, when Disney makes a movie in the UK and then brings it to the US to edit it and then distribute it, there's not really a price that's put on the production value in the UK. So what exactly would you tariff? And there's been a suggestion of, well, maybe we would tariff the amount of the subsidy that the UK gives to the project, but that isn't the proposal that the president is talking about. So it's really unclear how you would even begin to do this. Until it becomes more substantive than just a tweet, it's sort of hard to have anything to react to. There could be a proclamation at some point, there could be a Federal Register at some point, notice, and then you would get a little more meat on the bones in terms of, okay, this is what we can react to. And obviously anything they did would, there would be a lawsuit saying that this is an illegal infringement on, free speech and so on. But until there's actually some substance to react to, it's sort of hard to even take it that seriously, although you do have to certainly pay attention to it. I think there's just also the sort of fundamental question of, is there any political constituency for this? Like, what would the political reaction be? I mean, we just saw the reaction when Jimmy Kimmel was taken off the air for 3 days, right? And there was a huge groundswell against that, including some Republicans who were against that. And you could envision, like, this would be very disruptive and very chaotic for Hollywood if it were actually imposed. And you could imagine, like, nobody is out there saying, I want to pay more on a movie ticket to go see a movie that was made in the UK. So what would the political backlash look like? And would, sometimes they fight and sometimes they back off. And then we saw in the Kimmel situation, they backed off and Kimmel's back on the air. And it feels like before we even get to the legal and the practical, there's a fundamental political question of, is there any support for this? Like, even among the people who think that it is a huge problem that production is going overseas, this is not the solution that they want. They want subsidies, they do not want tariffs. Make that work. 100% tariff is just, we're not gonna, like, that's just shutting it down. Like, we're not gonna do it if it's gonna cost us 100% tariff. So the idea, like, one of the ideas that was sort of floated around the same time back in May was, this idea of we're gonna tariff the foreign subsidy. So if Canada gives you $50 million to make a movie in Canada, we're gonna have a $60 million tariff on that. Well, what's the impact of that? You're not going to go to Canada to make the movie. Anybody making a movie in Canada isn't going to bring it to the US. It's just going to cease that trade. Like, it's just going to stop. So that is not a tariff that would actually be in practical effect collected. That would just shut off that economic activity. it helps to think about, why do these countries do this, right? Are they doing this because they want to steal our jobs? I mean, really what they're doing, if you look at the UK, if you look at Canada, they are reacting to the overwhelming cultural dominance of the United States around the globe. And if it weren't for subsidies in the UK and France and all over the European Union, their movie screens and television screens would be completely dominated by a US product. And they have decided that it's in their financial interest to push back on that, and they support a domestic film and television industry. And they do that with state support. That's why they're doing it. They're not doing it to steal our jobs necessarily. So for us to think about, like, why would we do that? Like, we need to sort of think about, like, is this an important enough thing that we need to sort of protect our local industry for that reason? Or, what exactly is the fundamental rationale for what we're doing?
been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.